All right, it appears I'm live and I'm using StreamYard for the first time, so I need to figure out a quick way to get this link out on Twitter. Just bear with me. View this on YouTube and we'll go with it. Oh, it is working. Perfect. All right, 1 second and we will talk about 49ers OTAs. The offseason program is now over. Here we go. Live on YouTube talking 49ers right now. Everybody can join. Yeah, so they called it. The 49ers called the offseason program, and I am on a new streaming platform because ultimately I want to get some interviews on here. I want to share my screen, and I think I'm going to do that today. I'm going to share some stuff about the 49ers salary cap situation and about their projected depth chart after the offseason program, which abruptly ended after 2 injuries on Monday. Kyle Shanahan today said that the 49ers were in a situation where they only wanted to do 8 practices for OTAs. They got 7 in, and then they canceled number 8. So I don't know what the plan for minicamp the whole time was, but according to Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers weren't going to do minicamp at all. So that means that we have to wait, like a month and a half before this all starts. And training camp will be on July 31st. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the OTAs because they were weird this year. They weren't non-existent like they were in 2020, but they were shortened, and it never seemed fully sure that the 49ers were going to finish the whole thing. Then again, compared to other teams, they had essentially every single healthy player out there at OTAs. So it was one of those things where there was full team buy-in. There was a lot of positive energy coming from the 49ers, at least compared to a team like the Seahawks, where they only had like 28 players show up. I mean, around the whole league, attendance was a little bit of an issue. So the 49ers had everybody there. But at the same time, they then ran into a very vibe-killing Monday earlier this week when Justin Skule went down with a torn ACL and Tarvarius Moore tore his Achilles. I think those 2 plays happened within 3 plays of each other at practice, which obviously had to be a double gut punch for the 49ers. They finished up practice, then they decided not to go back out there on Tuesday, and then after that, they decided not to go back out there at all, and that includes the mandatory mini camp next week. So nothing is mandatory anymore until report day, which is July 27th for training camp. With the 49ers now, all the players are going to go their separate ways. It's going to be a case of everybody has to do their own work, that some of it's prescribed by what the 49ers do in-house as far as strength and conditioning. You can obviously stay in the facility, do your lifting there. But for the most part, guys are going to go home, and the 49ers are hoping that they come back in good shape on July 27th. The first training camp practice is on July 31st, and that's when all these position battles are really going to start in earnest. So now I'm going to try sharing my screen. We'll see how well this works. I have to pick which window I want because I want to show everybody the roster breakdown. There it is. Is that sharing correctly? Guys, give me a thumbs up if that works, either on YouTube or on here. StreamYard would be better probably because I could see it easier. I should probably open up the YouTube stream at the same time. I'm guessing the comments are going to be showing up separately on both. I'm still kind of getting used to this, but one of the main reasons that I wanted to upgrade to StreamYard is because I wanted to show you the 49ers roster. So I can make it bigger or smaller, or I can make myself bigger. I'd rather make it bigger right here. If you can zoom in on that, or you could make that take up your full screen, you'll see what I've set up here. And we're going to go position by position today as the 49ers have wrapped up their offseason program. On the left side in the yellow is my projected 53-man roster for the 49ers. In the red are the overflow players. So that way you have all 90, or in the 49ers case, 91 players, because they have an exception for Alfredo Gutierrez to the international players program. Alfredo Gutierrez is where my cursor is right now. So in short, anybody on the left side of this vertical line, I have projected to make the 53-man roster after OTAs. And anyone on the right side, I have labeled as bubble or practice squad. This is listed in depth chart form. So the offense is up here at the top left. The defense is bottom left, and special teams is way down here. You have every position, and as you move further to the right, players are lower down the depth chart. So we're going to go through this position by position, a little bit of a Wednesday evening special to celebrate the end of the offseason program. I'm not sure there's anything to be celebrating, but hey, we're having fun with this. That's what it's supposed to be. And there's a lot to unpack here, because at the same time that we're looking at this 49ers 90-man roster, we also have this, and this is the 49ers 53-man roster projection and how it will fit against the salary cap. Now, the 90-man roster right here, I'm taking the yellow half, so whoever I project to make the actual team come cut down day in training camp. Do I have Kai? Yeah, I do. Let me erase Kai now, so I should not have him twice. I messed something up there, so we'll take him off. Yeah, that makes sense, because now there's only 99 spots taken. Alfredo Gutierrez is the 91st guy. He doesn't count toward the 90. So thanks for the heads up. I'm glad that people are paying attention. That was a test. I put that there on purpose. Just kidding. But I take the yellow half right here and I put it on this sheet and I put all the salaries in, and we see that the 49ers only have $4.47 million of salary cap, because you have to include the practice squad, which is going to cost some money. You have to include dead money, and you have to include guys who are injured. You can't just cut somebody who's injured. You still have to pay him. So the 49ers don't have a lot of money to spruce this up, but we'll talk about the money at some time else. In fact, next week, I'm going to have a big piece on Fred Warner's contract and what that might look like, how the 49ers can fit it in to their tight salary cap situation. So anyway, let's start with quarterback. That's where everybody wants to start, because everybody always tunes in when we talk about the quarterback room. So that's going to be this slot right here. Now, this one was really crowded entering OTAs. It almost filled up the whole line here, because I had Josh Johnson in this 5th spot. The 49ers have released Josh Johnson, so now it's down to 4 guys. And I think the only real drama, as much as everybody wants to make drama, Jimmy Garoppolo versus Trey Lance, it's not really a battle right now. Jimmy Garoppolo is 1 right now. Lance is 2. Maybe that changes when Lance learns the playbook and gets more comfortable. But as of right now, Jimmy Garoppolo's looks strong. He's 1. Trey Lance is going to be 2. They're getting almost all of the reps in practice. That's how training camp's going to start. Injury permitting, right? Health permitting, I guess I should say. That's going to be your 1-2 going into the season. I think the real drama to begin, and don't get me wrong, we may have some Lance Garoppolo drama down the road, but to begin, I think that the drama is going to be 3 and 4, what I've highlighted right there. Josh Rosen and Nate Sudfeld. Nate Sudfeld has $252,000 of guaranteed money, which means the 49ers want to keep him at least on the practice squad, because that's the practice squad salary for the season. But Josh Rosen, obviously, is a former first-round draft pick who the 49ers might feel has limitless potential. Not limitless potential, but considering the fact that he'd be the QB3 would be very limitless for a spot where you don't normally get a very good quarterback. If Josh Rosen does a good job absorbing the 49ers playbook and impresses Kyle Shanahan enough, I think he's your quarterback 3. I think Nate Sudfeld is kept on the practice squad. If that doesn't happen, if the status quo that we see right now holds true, I think that you're going to see Nate Sudfeld move into quarterback 3. So it's going to be Garoppolo, Lance, Rosen, Sudfeld, maybe flip the other way around. I think they want to keep all 4 and have that last spot be on the practice squad. All right, now to running back. Now, running back and fullback will kind of group into the same category here, because I didn't have enough room for all these running back spots in the 53. So you'll notice right there, put Elijah Mitchell in the fullback row. But bottom line is you have room for 4 of these guys on the 53-man roster. 5 if you include fullback, but Kyle Juszczyk is obviously going to be that guy. Josh Hokett, who's right here, I project to make, again, to the practice squad. If Juszczyk gets hurt, you have Josh Hokett, who's impressed the 49ers, ready to step into that role. Raheem Mostert is 1. Trey Sermon, I see as being your depth piece number one, maybe behind Wayne Gallman to start the year, but I think ultimately the 49ers want Trey Sermon to take over for Wayne Gallman. And then I think you have Elijah Mitchell making the team, with the odd man out being JaMycal Hasty. If you have any questions about this, feel free to shoot them here in the YouTube stream or here on the StreamYard stream. In fact, I'm going to open this up on YouTube because I don't know if all of your questions are coming through. I still need to figure out how all this works. It looks like all the questions are coming through on StreamYard, so we're good. So I will close this right now. So ask your questions through whichever you want, and I'll answer them there. But in the running back room, you have Jeff Wilson, who I have shaded in red because he's on an injury list. Before the Jeff Wilson injury, he got up, standing up from a chair in the locker room. Jeff Wilson was going to be part of this group because he's got guaranteed money. He's one of the 49ers' best 4 running backs. That's settled. But then he tore his meniscus. So what that did is it opened the spot for either Wayne Gallman or Elijah Mitchell to slide in. JaMycal Hasty is still on the outside looking in. I know everybody loves JaMycal Hasty, but I just don't see room for him on this roster unless somebody else gets hurt, which obviously is possible. But as it stands right now, JaMycal Hasty might be a practice squad guy again. Maybe another team will pick him up. But right now it goes Mostert, Sermon, Gallman, and Mitchell. And I think you really have to like the 49ers running back room. I think they have a nice combination of physicality to go with, obviously, Raheem Mostert's speed. But Trey Sermon could bruise people. Wayne Gallman could bruise people. And Elijah Mitchell, I mean, for a 6th-round draft pick, this guy can do a little bit of everything. And he's a player that I wrote about in a feature story. In fact, I wrote feature stories about Sermon and Elijah Mitchell. A lot to like about both backs in terms of the full package and the versatility. Sermon, not the fastest guy in the world, but he's got a great burst. And Elijah Mitchell's pretty damn fast, and he also has that ability to get physical down the field. Just a really workman-like attitude from rural Louisiana. So for a 6th-round draft pick, he was the best player on the 49ers board. So not a lot of surprise in those first two groups. I know Rosen Sudfeld's the battle. Then we'll see how healthy the running backs stay. Now let's go to the receiver room, because this is where, to me, this is probably the most unpredictable position group on the 49ers roster. They were obviously interested in Julio Jones. They obviously weren't willing to outspend the Tennessee Titans for him. And that just means there's even more intrigue now in this room, because the back end spots, we're not sure who's going to make the team. I am going to change my projection right in front of you as right now, because based on what happened in OTAs and based on what Kyle Shanahan said, I think Juwan Jennings is going to be making the football team. The question is, what spot does Juwan Jennings take? Because I think the 49ers only take 6 wide receivers. And we have 3 spots right here. We have the X, we have the Z, and we have the F, which is like a slot spot. Now, some of them are interchangeable. I know Shanahan loves interchangeability. But the point is that at the end of the day, you can only have 6 total guys. So here's Ayuk. He's a lock, right? Deebo Samuel, he's a lock. Trent Sherfield, I believe, is a lock. He has $200,000 in guaranteed money. He's a special teams ace. They picked him up. He was a free agent, 4th-year guy coming out of Arizona. I think you have 3 locks. I think if Jalen Hurd, who's right here, who's coming along nicely in his rehab, stays healthy, I also believe he's a lock. But that's a much bigger if, obviously, because you can't count on Jalen Hurd's health. But let's just assume for a second that Jalen Hurd does make the initial 53-man roster. That is 4 out of 6 spots. That leaves you with, on my current projection, Mohamed Sanu, and I'll highlight Richie James up here. Sanu has looked good. I think that Sanu makes the team based on how he's looked, because the 49ers are going to want that veteran, dependable presence. I really, really want to get Juwan Jennings in there now, though, because Juwan Jennings, after being hurt last year, has also looked good, and players are talking, coaches are talking about him in a really positive way. So I think I'm going to make a bold move right now, and I'm going to swap Richie James out and put Juwan Jennings in. So we will cut Richie James right here. We'll stick him here just briefly. I have an automatic counter at the bottom to make sure that we have the correct amount of players on the 53-man roster, and I'm going to take Jawan Jennings here. And I know Jawan Jennings would probably not be in the X spot. He'd probably be in the slot spot, but I'll fix that later. Maybe we put Jalen Hurd up there. But I'll put Jawan Jennings in, and right now we'll have Richie James on the outside looking in at one of these wide receiver spots. I should put him right there. We'll actually erase Jawan Jennings, cut Richie James out right there. Now, will that happen? I'm not sure. And we're down to 90 and 53 again. Special teams is going to be a huge issue in these determinations at the back end of the roster. And I just see a great question right now. Who's the kick and punt returner with Richie James gone? I think that Trent Sherfield takes a big special teams role. I'm not really sure if he's going to be a returner, but why don't we just, take a peek ahead here? I think that Ambry Thomas is potentially going to be a kick returner at least, and potentially a punt returner for the 49ers. And he's at the cornerback spot. Let's get Ambry Thomas. I'm going to move this here. Sorry about that. Ambry Thomas is going to be in the second corner spot. I think as a rookie, that's a guy that's going to compete for those roles. I also think that, as I said, Trent Sherfield is going to be key for the 49ers. But I also believe from a special teams aspect, you might see some of Brandon Ayuk occasionally. Not often, but they used them a little bit last year. And if they really need him on some of these returns, you might see Brandon Ayuk. I think that Kyle Shanahan was fed up enough with the lack of special teams efficiency last season to the point that he just can't be losing that many expected points out of the return game. That's why we eventually saw Brandon Ayuk back there a little bit last year. We might see a little bit this year. But I think Ambry Thomas is going to have a big role this season. I really think that the 49ers liked what he did on special teams at Michigan. He took some kicks back to the house, or at least one of them, against Notre Dame for Michigan last season, or 2 seasons ago, because last season was an opt-out year. And, Ambry Thomas is a player who is a lot like Richie James in that I don't know if he's going to be starting or being at the top of the depth chart this year, but if he does make the team, which he will as a third-round draft pick, he's going to have to contribute on special teams. Now, that's why I wouldn't rule Richie James completely out of the equation. I think Richie James brings you some return value, but the return game wasn't good for the 49ers last year. There's a lot to fix on that front, and I think that's why they're going to be looking at new options in the return game. I think special teams is absolutely something that the 49ers are going to have to address this year. And I absolutely agree that it is risky to put Brandon Ayuk back there. You do expose him to more injury. That's why Kyle Shanahan hasn't done it all too much in the past, but he has done it a little bit. And I think in opportune spots, the 49ers are really going to want to boost in that return game. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ayuk was there. The one issue with this receiving core is, of Ayuk, if you're counting Ayuk not being a special teams guy, is that Samuel's not going to be a special teams guy. Sanu's not going to be a special teams guy. Jawan Jennings is too slow, I think, to count on for returns. And then and obviously Jalen Hurd won't be either. So that leaves you with only Trent Sherfield. So I get it. I get that's why Richie James might have an inside track. I get that's why Travis Benjamin, who's a fast guy, might have a chance to make the roster. And hey, maybe the 49ers will take 7 wide receivers because of this special teams consideration. So now let me move Richie James back onto the 53-man roster just to show you how some of these shuffles might work. So we put Richie James back onto the roster. We erase him from the overflow side. So notice I put him there. Now the 49ers are carrying 7, which is not unheard of. If they carry 7, look down here. All of a sudden, we're at 54 players on the 53-man roster. So we're over the limit. So if the 49ers decide to do that, if they really want Jawan Jennings there and they really want Richie James there for special teams and they think that he brings a different dynamic, they're going to have to cut somebody else. Well, where would they do that? Okay, let's keep on moving on. The tight end room is really interesting to me because I think there might be some excess fat here that they can trim. Obviously, George Kittle is going to make it. Michael Pruitt is also going to make the team because he just signed a deal with $500,000 in guaranteed money. So that leaves Ross Dwelley and Charlie Werner. Ross Dwelly also has a little bit of guaranteed money in his deal, and the 49ers love his versatility. Charlie Warner was only a 6th-round pick last year. Might Charlie Warner be a practice squad candidate? I think that's possible, especially if the 49ers take 7 wide receivers, and Richie James has to be one of them alongside Juwan Jennings. So to get us back down to 53, I'm not predicting anything right now. I'm just messing with the roster. But to get us back down to 53, I'm going to move Charlie Warner to the bubble out of the 53. All right, you see down here, we're back down to 53, 90 on the other side. Everything's clean. That would involve Kyle Shanahan taking only 3 tight ends. So we'll see what happens. Let's move on to the offensive line. We have Trent Williams, left guard, Laken Tomlinson, left tackle, Laken Tomlinson at left guard, Alex Mack at center, Aaron Banks at right guard, and Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. As far as depth, you have Colton McKivitz as a potential, just general depth swing tackle. He can play guard too. You have Daniel Brunskill, a swing tackle, general depth. And you obviously have Jalen Moore making the team. He's another versatile guy that saw some action at tackle in OTAs, but the 49ers view him more as a guard. Good point from Daniel Lynch that Jalen Hurd can play the old flex tight end role that Delaney Walker used to play. That's a really, really good point. So if what Daniel Lynch is saying right now holds true, you can actually move Jalen Hurd for all intents and purposes into a flex tight end spot, which I'll put right here. Let's move Dwelly down a spot. Let's move Dwelly down to the other tight end role. And let's move Hurd to this one. Let's erase Hurd from those two. And let's move Richie James into here. Now, this looks a whole lot more balanced, doesn't it? You have your 6 wide receivers right here, technical wide receivers. And then you have Hurd as a flex guy who can do a little bit of both in the tight end room, technically, right behind Kittle. And all of a sudden, you have, in a way, if Hurd can block well enough, if he can do some of that tight end stuff, you still have your 4 tight ends. You still have Richie James on the roster for special teams reasons. And you're still at the 53-man limit. You're under the limit. That would be ideal for the 49ers. I think that's great, but I think that also illustrates how tenuous this Jalen Hurd situation is and how much it could help the 49ers if he's healthy and how frustrating it will be if he's not, right? So it's just how you play this roster Tetris, and I'm going to keep it that way for now, and I'm going to put an asterisk by Jalen Hurd, and later when I share this link with everybody, I will explain the asterisk down at the bottom that he's actually a receiver, but he's a tight end. So thanks, Daniel. That is a great little addition there. Let's look at a couple more questions before I finish up the offensive line. Any chance Sanu plays in the practice squad with the new practice squad rules? Absolutely, there's a chance he plays in the practice squad. Although I believe that the 49ers, especially with Jalen Hurd being so untested, with Juwan Jennings being so untested, I mean, neither of these guys has played a regular season NFL game. I think they're going to want that veteran presence with Sanu on the roster. Maybe stuff will change in training camp. I don't know. But I can tell you this. I can tell you that that Mohamed Sanu looked really good in OTAs. I think that it's a situation where he's come into camp healthy. He's come in hungry. People have been talking about him, and we'll see. And hey, yes, Jalen Hurd blocking with his back. Jalen Hurd is not just going to be there to be a receiving weapon. If you play receiver, I don't care if you're listed in this tight end role, if you're listed in the receiver role. If you're playing for the 49ers and for Kyle Shanahan, you have to be able to block. Otherwise, you're hindering the offense at wide receiver. This is a run-first offense. If the receiver can't block, that's going to immediately be a tell that they're passing the ball. That's immediately going to allow the defense to have a step up on you. So Jalen Hurd's either going to be healthy or he's not. You can't have 80% healthy. You can't have 50% of his skills. You have to be able to deliver 100%. And last year, let's be honest, Jalen Hurd's back was 100% healthy. It was the ACL that got him last year. I don't know if that's good news or bad news that it was, a different injury than the back, but they're going to need all of Jalen Hurd if they do have Jalen Hurd, not just half of Jalen Hurd. Okay, on that offensive line, I think they carry 8. Justin Schools right here, I have him in red because he's going to be on an injury list with his torn ACL. I didn't move Justin School after the injury. I thought Justin School is going to be on the outside looking in for what it's worth. Sean Coleman is a very interesting situation because this guy probably has more talent than any of the 49ers reserves, but he hasn't played since 2017 due to injury issues and the opt-out last year. So I just can't project Sean Coleman onto the 53-man roster until I see him actually play in training camp, play in the preseason without getting hurt, until I see what he has. So for now, I think McKivitz makes it because I think the 49ers have been really happy with the progress he's made this offseason. I think that Daniel Brunskill obviously makes it because he's been a very valuable utility piece for them. And they really do like Jalen Moore, as I said a few minutes ago. So offensive line, to me, fairly straightforward. If Sean Coleman somehow forces his way onto the team, then you move him over here. Do you have 9? No, maybe that pushes a guy like McKivitz out. I just can't project it yet. Plus, a guy can always get hurt, and a guy probably will get hurt. And in that case, you're starting to mix and match. You're moving Sean Coleman up. You're happy to have the depth if you're the 49ers. And right now, 1 through 8, 1 through 7, whichever way you want to look at it, that offensive line, let's just select it all here. That offensive line is looking a lot stronger than it was in recent years. They might have been looking good 1 through 5 last year, maybe only 1 through 4, but they certainly weren't looking good in spots 6, 7, and 8. In 2019, they looked good through 6 or 7 spots, and I think that's a big reason why they ended up in the Super Bowl. I think now, if Jalen Moore pans out, and obviously if Aaron Banks pans out, there's a lot on Aaron Banks' shoulders, because if he doesn't pan out, this whole Tetris model kind of collapses, right? You have to have that. You have to have Aaron Banks play well, because that allows Daniel Brunskill to move here, and that takes pressure off of all these guys. If Aaron Banks doesn't play well, there's so much pressure on everybody, including these reserves, and that's not good. So you just hope that the front line holds up, and then the back 3 are stronger than they were in the past, which I think on paper 49ers have executed this offseason. We're now going to move on to defense. Any questions? I'm going to take a little drink. It's like I'm teaching a class. I teach a class at the College of Marin, a journalism class. Give me a writing class this next semester, in case you're interested. And we've been doing everything on Zoom here over the course of the past year, obviously. So I share my screen a lot, and that's where we're at right now with the 53-man roster. I don't think that Kyle changed his prototype or approach on guards. Mike McDaniel had a great quote today. He said, if the guy's fast enough, we would love for him to be 6'10" and 400 pounds. Kyle Shanahan has said similar things. They want guys to be big and strong and fast. The problem is the 49ers have not used high draft capital on the guard position until now, until they got Aaron Banks. And because they used that second-round pick, that valuable draft capital, the 49ers believe that they have gotten a guy that can move while simultaneously being big. They feel they've gotten the best of both worlds. Does that mean that they might run a little bit more gap scheme, a little bit more inside zone? Of course. They might be better in the red zone because of it, because Aaron Banks can be a mauler, right? But it doesn't mean that this is the first time they've wanted power inside. It's just the first time they've been willing to invest that much in it. And the reason the 49ers have invested this much in the inside and is because it's such a necessity. I mean, it's derailed seasons at this point. It lost them the Super Bowl. The interior offensive line play, particularly at right guard, was not good enough to win the Super Bowl down the stretch. I mean, the line totally caved in under Chris Jones. And then last season, it was a complete disaster. So they finally got fed up and they said, hey, we need to use valuable draft capital to make the interior offensive line better and also to make the entire line better, because you're only as good as your top 7 or 8 offensive linemen. You have to have a deep offensive line to win in the NFL at a high level. So they got fed up and they said, we're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We're going to use a second-round pick on Aaron Banks. Right? And I don't think their philosophy has changed in as much as they just prioritized getting a better lineman sooner. They would have gotten an Aaron Banks type who they believe has size and can run sooner had they allocated that kind of draft capital to it in years prior, but they didn't do it until this season. The question about has Aaron Banks played well so far, really impossible to answer right now because pads haven't come on yet. So we can't really evaluate the guys in the trenches until training camp. One more question about the running backs, and I'm going to move on to the defense. Been live for 30 minutes. This might be an hour show. Been talking a lot today. David, do you think it would be crazy to predict Sermon and Mitchell / Gallman being the starting running backs. Mostert and Wilson have shown that they can't stay healthy. Well, obviously, if they get hurt, then you see those other guys be the starting running backs. But, Sermon got hurt himself in college. Elijah Mitchell is very durable. Wayne Gallman, I think, has been durable in the NFL so far. He's a Clemson product, and he played for the New York Giants. I could see anything at running back. Wasn't JaMychal Hasty the starter last year against Green Bay with Austin Walter also playing for them because everybody was hurt or on the COVID list? I could see anything, but I think in an ideal world, Mostert's your top guy. Jeff Wilson's your second guy. I get it. Jeff Wilson's already hurt. And then you move on to the other ones. But there is a reason that you rotate that room. Does taking 7 wide receivers say anything about future play calling? No, again, it doesn't. I think if they take 7, then the point earlier, I think it was from Daniel Lynch, about one of them needing to have tight end flex capabilities is probably mandatory. 7 would be aggressive, but you do this positionless skill position thing. You do have guys like Juwan Jennings and Jalen Hurd who could kind of play like tight ends. In fact, Austin Watkins, who I think will certainly make the practice squad, undrafted free agent, his college coach, his head coach in college told me people confused Austin Watkins occasionally for a tight end because of his body type. So that's the type of receiver the 49ers are going for, especially lower down in that receiver room. Obviously not Brandon Ayuk, but they're going for a yak guy, of course, but they're also going for a receiver who can flex out and do the blocking duties that often are associated with the tight end position, because then you could create an offense that's more unpredictable, allows Kyle Shanahan to really shine as a play caller. All right, it's time to go to the defense. The defensive line, the 49ers have always carried 10 on their 53-man roster. So here you have it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Starters, non-starters, it's going to be a rotation. So don't nitpick here too much because it's hard to illustrate how they rotate. But in an ideal world on base downs, I think you got Bosa and Ebukam. If you really want to get ideal, you have Bosa and D Ford out there with Ebukam kind of mixing in. But I don't think that you could project D Ford until he actually shows it at training camp to make the team. So I have D Ford on some kind of short-term IR to begin. But for now, we got Bosa, Eric Armstead, DJ Jones at nose tackle, and Samson Ebukam, the free agent pickup along the line. Will D Ford be ready? I don't know. I know D Ford is confident in himself. It was Matt Barrows and I who reported that first, that D Ford might be ready for this 2021 season. That doesn't mean that it's a slam dunk. They're not cutting him, that's for sure, and they're hoping that they're going to have him. If they have him, does he kick somebody else off the 53-man roster? Maybe. An injury to somebody else might do that first, though. So for now, those are your 4. You have Jordan Willis as the 5 technique behind Nick Bosa. I really like Arden Key under Chris Kasarik as a depth speed rusher. Didn't do a lot with the Raiders, but there is a lot of talent to be tapped in there. And what I really like with the 49ers right now is the depth that they have on the interior. You have a situation where it's not just Javon Kinlaw, right? It's not just Kevin Givens, who's going to be on this team as well. They've added Zach Kerr. They've added Maurice Hurst. Zach Kerr was one of the better interior linemen in football last year. When you look at all the grades and, out of the limited action guys, he might have been the best on the interior defensive line. Nobody is saying the 49ers picked up Aaron Donald and Zach Kerr, but they did pick up one heck of a player in Zach Kerr to fill out a rotation. I think Maurice Hurst was a plus player for the Raiders. So all of a sudden, you are jammed up in the middle of the 49ers defensive line because DJ Jones also unexpectedly came back at a discount. So you're jammed up to the point that I don't think Contavious Street makes the team. I think Darian Daniels is a practice squad guy again. I don't know if they sign any more interior defensive linemen unless there are injuries, just because it's going to be really hard to make this team as an interior defensive lineman. I'm happy to put Kevin Givens, who's a good, productive player, in like the 3rd depth chart column here. Maurice Hurst is in the 3rd depth chart column here. That just shows you how strong the rotation on the inside is. So the 49ers are going to be really stout up the middle if all goes well, and that's going to allow that edge situation to develop itself. Obviously, you have Nick Bosa, but he's coming off the ACL. Jordan Willis is a project. Samson Ebukam was good with the Rams. You let him settle into his new role. Arden Key is going to be a project under Chris Kasarik, and then D Ford kind of has to fit in there. A lot of projects and question marks, but a lot of talent. How do you maximize it? You maximize it by ensuring that interior is stout. And remember, Eric Armstead is a guy who's a rover. He could play both inside and outside. And if you get that exterior to be really strong, you get more interior rushes from Eric Armstead, and then I think you're set. At that point, if the exterior is strong, if Ford is back, Armstead's rushing from the inside, you can rival the 2019 line if you're the 49ers. Let's talk some more here. Questions before we get to the linebackers. Only 2 more position groups, and then I go and grill and have some dinner. I'm hungry. Love the depth, but the edges, that's still a bit of a concern unless Key produces. Absolutely. I think when you're looking at the edges for the 49ers, I thought they might sign another guy, but it's clear that, it's tough to – maybe they bring in Melvin Ingram if they could get him at a veteran salary exception, but even he would be a question mark, right, coming off an injury year. He's at the tail end of his career. No matter who you bring in, they don't have the resources to bring in a star that's going to all of a sudden cause us to say they no longer have questions at edge rusher. Every player that the 49ers bring in to play defensive end from this point on will just be another potential option to solve the questions that they have. There's a chance they strike out and they go 0 for 5, and that every single one of these guys doesn't pan out. In that case, I don't say you're screwed, but your defense is not going to be an elite defense. But the hope is when you bring in more and more guys, so now between D Ford and Arden Key and Sansom Ebicom and Jordan Willis, and of course Nick Bosa and obviously Eric Armstead, but I think Armstead's more of an interior guy if you have things the way you want it. Between all those guys, you have a situation where if at least one of them pans out and if 2 of them pan out, you're good. You're playing the game of averages at that point for the 49ers. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, Ebicom is a flex to strong side linebacker to bump Al-Shaair, maybe, but that's not really how this scheme works. I think they want Ebicom's hand in the dirt. I think they want him roaring around the edge. I really see him as a pure edge rusher. The Rams had him dropping in coverage, not a lot, but a significant amount of snaps. I don't see that happening. The 49ers with Saleh would drop the defensive lineman in coverage once in a blue moon. Twitter would always explode. People would freak out. It's okay. Sometimes you have to manufacture pressure in a different way. I don't think they're going to do it as a thing of schematic regularity. So yeah, Melvin Ingram or Justin Houston, if you get them at the right price, if you could get them at veteran salary exceptions, would be nice additions because they would fortify the questions at edge depth. It's as simple as that. Linebacker is moderately interesting to me. Obviously Warner, I'll do another YouTube live to talk about his contract. Obviously Greenlaw. A sneaky battle is at strong side linebacker. Will Al-Shaair win it or will Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles win it? I think, maybe the loser of that battle makes the roster and James Burgess doesn't. Nate Jerry's currently hurt. He's expected for training camp, so maybe Nate Jerry is able to thrust his way into the battle. And who knows, maybe the undrafted free agent Justin Hilliard or Elijah Sullivan, 2 guys that might have a chance to make a move at training camp. Maybe they'll do so, and maybe they'll thrust their way into a potential 4th linebacker spot, which is a big special teams kind of spot. I don't know. I do know that Nate Jerry has potentially good special teams value, and I haven't even mentioned Jonas Griffith yet. So I see 2 starting spots sealed. I see 3 roster spots sealed because I think Azeez Al-Shaair will definitely make the team, but I'm not sure if his starting spot is sealed. There's a lot of guys that will be competing for that strong side linebacker spot, and special teams will be key. At the end of the day, I think they take 4 because if you have in-game injuries, you have to have at least 1 extra guy, but I don't think they have room on the 53-man roster. I think the trade-offs are too great on the 53-man roster to take 5 linebackers, especially because I think your 5th linebacker, in a way, can be Talanoa Hufanga. So now we move to the secondary. This will wrap it up. Talanoa Hufanga is the 49ers, one of their 5th-round draft picks. He has already been penciled into a hybrid linebacker strong safety role. And despite the fact that Tarvarius Moore over here just tore his Achilles and obviously weakened the 49ers at safety, I still believe the 49ers have considerable depth at strong safety. Obviously, Jimmy Ward is your man at free safety down here. But you have Jaquaski Tart, you have Marcel Harris at strong safety, and then if that's not enough for you, you still have Tony Jefferson, really good player before his ACL tear, the 49ers just signed. And you also have Tavon Wilson. And with the safety positions being as interchangeable as they are, I think the 49ers are feeling good about that, but I also don't think they just want to cut Talanoa Hufanga because he's a player that, in fact, like reminds me a lot of a lighter Fred Warner. So I don't think he's going to be a middle linebacker anytime soon because Warner's bigger. But some of Hufanga's, turnover producing capability, some of his anticipation on film reminds me a lot of Fred Warner's BYU film where Warner played kind of a defensive back-like role. That was a new role cut out for him. So I think you move Hufanga into one of those hybrid roles, put on some weight, and maybe he could be your de facto fifth linebacker, only in coverage situations. I'm not talking about playing the run, but a fifth linebacker that could play the run in a pinch and can develop as your fifth guy. That allows you to fit more players on the roster if the 49ers think like that. That's the glory of positional interchangeability. Positionless, skill positions, whatever you want to call it, that is how you maximize the 53-man roster. And that's what I think that the 49ers are doing with Talanoa Hufanga. The question about him here is his future more focused on long-term development then? Yes, absolutely. I think Hufanga is more of a long-term developed guy. That's why he's picked in the 5th round. And I think that to carry him on the roster, if you're afraid some team's going to poach him, which might not happen, you could put him on the practice squad, obviously, instead, and you could have a guy like Tony Jefferson who's more ready-made to contribute right now, make the team. But I could see the 49ers carrying Hufanga and expecting him to kind of emerge into that hybrid role. Now, the big question is the practice squad. It's going to be larger again this year. The new CBA has allowed it to be bigger. Where do you stash some of those guys? That's where another spot where a guy like Talanoa Hufanga may end up. It really all depends on training camp. It's not coach speak when these coaches say they don't know until training camp. They need to see Tony Jefferson. They haven't seen him out yet on the practice field. They need to see, more than just Tony Jefferson. You want to see the rookies. You want to see Tavon Wilson, how he fits in with pads, and then you can kind of slot the guys from there. But if you look at the front line of the secondary, obviously Jason Verrett is the guy you're paying to be your cornerback 1. Emmanuel Mosley is your cornerback 2 for now, but Ambry Thomas is going to compete for that role. Emmanuel Mosley is not, I don't think he's locked in to be your cornerback number 2. I think he's going to compete for that role. And then K'Wan Williams, obviously your nickelback 1, but they're looking at Diamador Lenore as their nickelback 2, and he's going to compete for that role. And guess what? Tarvarius Moore over here, he just got hurt. What role was Tarvarius Moore playing in the Super Bowl? Or I think even as recently as the Patriots game, or I might have that wrong, but for the Super Bowl, for sure, Tarvarius Moore was playing in a dime back kind of position. A lot of NFL offenses necessitate that you have that dime back to combat the spread offense. Well, Tarvarius Moore is hurt. Good thing Diamador Lenore is on this team. I think Diamador Lenore may be a great dime back for the 49ers, at least to get started. So you see the interchangeability everywhere, but I think it's especially important in certain position groups, and the secondary being one of them. Okay, any more questions? I've been going for 49 minutes. It's a record. It's a lot of fun doing these. Tell your friends to sign up, subscribe on YouTube, do all that good stuff. I mean, we're basically running PowerPoint presentations at this point. And then I'll try to get some guests on too. But this StreamYard stuff has been great. Are we going to avoid Sherman because he can't really play top-level press man coverage? I think Sherman can play press. I think that's kind of overblown. I think he's really physical. I think he's got the smarts and the wherewithal still, even at age 33, to play that press coverage. I don't think it's as bad of a fit as people are saying. Yes, the recovery speed isn't great, but I think Richard Sherman's so technically good at the line of scrimmage that he makes a defense better, even if they're playing more press man. And yes, the 49ers will play more press man. Yes, that's what Ambry Thomas did in college. Yes, Diamador Lenore is good at press man. I mean, he calls himself the hyena. The reason the 49ers might not re-sign Richard Sherman, I think is a purely financial one. I think Richard Sherman is worth more than a veteran salary exception. I think that's why he hasn't signed anywhere yet. The problem is that it's these guys who aren't being paid like superstars anymore, yet are still worth more than a veteran salary exception. That's exactly where Richard Sherman falls. Those are the guys that are getting squeezed in this cap crunch that we're seeing this year. And the 49ers, I mean, if you go to my cap worksheet, only $4.4 million left. It's really hard to fit a guy like Richard Sherman if he's wants more than that veteran salary exception into there, unless you have a clearly defined spot for him. And at this point, it's tough to have a clearly defined spot when you have Ambry Thomas and Emmanuel Mosley competing for one of the cornerback spots. So if you have somebody go down, somebody get hurt, okay, yes, that's when you might consider paying Richard Sherman a little bit more, making some room for him, because he could obviously tutor a lot of the guys. It's a job he's been very good at, but it's just not a situation where it could fit right now. And that's why I think you're seeing Richard Sherman say, I probably won't sign with a team until training camp, and why the 49ers are also holding off. So that's the answer to your question. I think he's a better fit per se than a lot of people are making him out to be, but financially, I don't think it's a great fit right now. And I hope that this whole roster exercise, looking at this full roster, kind of in classroom style after OTAs, helped really visualize where the 49ers can spend and where they can't. Next time, we're going to look at the salary cap. Yeah, only 4.4 million left. I mean, it's here. Like this is a 53-man roster stuff. So 4.4 million practice squad projections, dead money. And then look, I could give Fred Warner an extension, raises cap hit up to 7 million. 49ers are down to 1.1 million. So they may have to restructure Eric Armstead. That seems like a logical candidate. They'll have to do something, but they've done a good job building the roster, but there's limits to everything. We reached the limit with Julio Jones. Obviously, they weren't willing to go over what the Titans were going. They would have had to gone significantly over because they're in the NFC and the Titans are in the AFC. But yeah, we're at the limit point of this conversation, and now we have a month and a half to talk about it until training camp starts. I'm going to just grill a simple burger tonight. It's almost 8 o'clock, so I'm going to have to get going. So somebody asked me what I'm grilling. But yeah, I mean, here, I'll share my most recent article. And I'll go because this is tomorrow. I have a piece on Mike McDaniel coming out, so tune in the morning. But right here, this is my article about future potential 49ers moves. So sign up to Athletic and you'll get it. But right here, you could see I break down the whole cap situation, and then I talk about, I have that, which you guys just saw. I talk about who they can get at corner. We have Richard Sherman, Zach Ertz at tight end. What do we have here? Edge rusher. I talked about Justin Houston. I talked about Melvin Ingram. I mean, the whole thing is there, and then they're all talking about it in the comment section. So sign up. It's at that link. But that's where we are right now in the 49ers offseason, and I'm really just trying to put it there in classroom style. All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for all the support. I appreciate it. Tell everybody about the YouTube channel. Try to grow the audience there and grow the audience on the Athletic. So sign up for that article. I think it's only like $3 a month. So it'll all be worth it. I'm going to go eat. I'll say bye on the full screen. That's good. I think it worked well today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the 49ers roster breakdown. Everybody take care, and thanks for the StreamYard recommendation.